Nintendo is a crazy company. Like nowadays, I would say it would not be unfair to characterize them as kind of hating their fans, but the fans love them so much anyway that they're willing to go through fire in order to do these things.
And we're back. And Nintendo reported some tough numbers last month, with revenue dropping 47% and profit falling 55%. It sold 2.1 million of its flagship Switch console, down 46% year on year. This is obviously a surprise. Switch was released 7 years ago and is actually being replaced by a new console in probably the next 6 months, but you might know a bit more about that than me. Nintendo didn't release...
By the way, it's a low bar.
Yeah, true. Nintendo didn't release any blockbuster games in the past quarter, but has announced a string of games coming out in coming months, featuring well-known characters like Mario and Donkey Kong. Nintendo's about to have a big recovery. Adir, you're our regular games correspondent. How bullish are you on Nintendo's comeback?
So there's some things in it. Firstly, this is a crazy business. Yeah. Like it is a cash machine. Oh, well, actually, it's not a cash machine because it's an operating cash machine, let's call it. Like this is a business in the sense that someone who was alive or who died in 1950 would understand what a business is. Like,
do you know what I did in 1950?
Well, it was a card
playing card. It was the number one playing
yes.
cards business in Japan.
I've listened and read to an astonishing amount of stuff about Nintendo. Yeah. But what I mean by that is it generates revenue. It produces earnings that turns into cash and then they pay dividends.
Yeah.
That's a business.
Yeah.
And so this is a really good business. Like I think its operating margins are like 35% or 33% or something. So this is a really good business. I wouldn't worry about Nintendo in terms of their numbers.
Well, it's almost share prices basically record highs.
Yeah, and
the market agrees with you.
The business is amazing. I went to Nintendo Live. Like people
what
love
is
this
What is
brand.
Nintendo Live?
It's basically this very poorly organized event, typical of Nintendo. Totally, there's some balance between them hating their fans and then underestimating that they have fans outside Japan. And so it was basically this huge space at the ICC in Sydney, the convention centre.
You go to Sydney especially for this?
Yep. And then
you dress up as Mario?
I dressed up
or Luigi?
Princess Peach. You can work out what I wore. Actually,
I'm definitely money on Princess Peach.
Actually, I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt because it was unseasonably warm of 26 degrees.
So hot up there.
Sunny.
Yeah.
And so it was basically all these activations, I think marketers call them, and of all these different things you could do. And they had the guy there who played Mario's voice.
In the movie?
In the
games.
Yeah, who's now become like this roving
what does he
spokesman.
say? I didn't realise he even had said it.
He's got things that he says, and he actually plays most of the characters in the Mario franchise.
Like Harry Shearer in The Simpsons.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, did I not talk about Nintendo Live a couple of weeks ago?
No, boys, did you talk about it? No.
I went to Nintendo Live and I came back and I didn't talk about it.
You mentioned you were going to talk about it.
Oh my God, I can't believe I haven't spoken about this.
Oh, Mike's been waiting for weeks for this.
I think it may have been the greatest day of my son's life. But
you always go to these geek conventions.
But this is the first time this has taken place outside
what's that thing
Japan or North America.
Every year here that
PAX.
sells out.
That's a gaming convention. This is just a Nintendo thing. You can't buy. So Nintendo's a crazy business. They firstly don't think they have fans outside Japan. Like I think they accept
in the States though. Like, they know that.
Well, they accept that they've got some American fans, but they basically are very Japan-centric.
Yeah.
And so they did this thing in Australia, which usually would happen in Melbourne. God knows why they did it in Sydney. It was a strange decision. And because
why do you say that? Sydney's got more people.
I know, but Melbourne has historically been
the gaming capital.
The gaming capital, and where Nintendo has done their events, if they've done them. The Australian Nintendo team, not to diminish them at all, I don't know any of them, but this is mostly a marketing territory.
Of course.
And it's not considered one of the more important marketing territories for Nintendo.
Yeah.
So
was there a GoldenEye booth at this thing?
GoldenEye?
Best game ever?
I think that they've kind of moved on from the 1990s. But anyway, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a second. And so they had these really fun installations. My son was very excited because he went and played. There was this contest where first you had to qualify. Mike will love this story. First you had to qualify playing a Mario Karts round. Then if you won your heat, there were like 8 or 9 tables. Then you had to play a Mario Maker 2 round.
What's Mario Maker?
It's a platforming game.
Like Super Mario Brothers.
So you can create your own Mario levels. So users create their own levels and then you can play other people's levels that they've made. So
you ever play, speaking of which, you play Mario Kart Live where you make the track in your house and it has the video on the car?
Yes.
I had that game. It was a bit of a hassle.
I bought a little toy that you drove around to play that
one.
game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A different one.
That's that little remote control car.
Yeah, it's like a remote control car.
Yeah,
You use your,
it was junk.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah. And so, in fact, I bought all of the physical stuff that they made for the Switch as well. There were these cardboard things you put together.
That thing,
that
was the thing. Yeah.
It was no good. So
it was disappointing, actually.
And so this live event, so they had these different things. My son played this thing. He got through to the final.
Wow.
And then on the final, you sit with these 4 people on a stage and then you play some game. And so the first game they played, it was a mini game where you collect coins, and they told my son that he was a different character, and so he was trying to play the wrong character the whole time, and so he didn't win. And so I took a video of him losing, and then I said, I just got to go and get a coffee, but you should try again and see if you can get into the final again and see how you go.
While I was out getting constantly.
While I was out getting a coffee, he got into the final and won. He won on this game where it's the dumbest game. It's called Shy Guy something, this mini game, where you have to put up your left arm or your right arm holding a flag, and like whoever wins in the end is
Shy Guy Says.
Shy Guy Says. It's like the worst mini game ever. Yeah. And so he won, and he gave this little speech about winning. And I was out, but he told me about it. I was very depressed to be out of there.
What did he win?
Glory. And
no, you didn't get like a Switch or something.
Well, Nintendo was so disorganized. Like anyway, I'll tell you about how you even get to this event. But the first question they said to him is, "This is an official Nintendo event. So what do you think about the Shy Guy Says game that you won?" And he's like, "Oh, it's the worst game on the Switch." So anyway, that was good. And so they had all these kind of activities. You can't buy tickets.
How'd you get in?
Lottery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you go into
Like
lottery.
London Marathon.
Free. So we won the lottery. Then if you want to go, then there's queues. So then you can go into this fast pass where you have to go again and quickly, as soon as it opens, choose the time you want to go in. So he got access to it.
Cool.
And so I think there were I would say you probably had a 10% chance of getting a ticket.
Wow.
And there were probably 5,000 to 10,000.
Wow.
Tickets.
100,000 people tried to go to this thing.
Yeah, people love this. And so
how did you even hear about it?
Then they give you this show bag.
Did you know about this, Mike?
Yeah, I did know about it. I don't know
you go on the
how.
ballot?
No, I don't know how Adir managed to get tickets.
Well, my son, this is all my son cares
Australia's
about
biggest
in
geek.
life.
He always gets tickets for
Well,
this
my
thing.
son that loves Nintendo. I pulled no strings, okay? And
Should have invited me.
Yeah, I should have. Well, it depends who you ask. And so they give you this show bag when you go there, and there's all this good merch in this show bag.
So good.
So then you have to line up to go to a special Nintendo e-store, and then you have to line up for exclusive merch just for this event. Well, that was a shambles. Nintendo is basically a shambles. And so on the first day, and also you can't bring food.
It's multiple days.
Well, yeah, it's multiple. You can't bring food and drink into this thing.
Well, we went to starve?
But there's no food and drink in there. And there's no pass outs, but there might be pass outs. On the first day, they didn't give pass outs.
People like dying of starvation in there?
They said you can't bring food. Needless to say, I brought food in. I just put it underneath some stuff. They didn't care.
Yeah.
And so, it was just this crazy event. On the first day, it was a total disaster. On the second day, they basically shut the Nintendo e-store, and then they said, if you want the exclusive merch, that's all right. We're now just going to put it online for anyone to buy, but you'll get first access to it, whatever that means. But the reason I tell you this is because Nintendo is a crazy company. Nowadays, I would say it would not be unfair to characterize them as kind of hating their fans, but the fans love them so much anyway that they're willing to go through fire in order to do these things. And so when you talk about this Nintendo performance and their numbers are down and whatever, the reason that's happening, it doesn't really matter. The Switch is, as you said, 7 or 8 years old. There's a new Switch coming. We'll talk about the risk in that in a second. They made the Nintendo Mario movie last year.
Yeah, I saw it. It was a good movie.
That's what drove a ton of the profitability in the business, right? And Miyamoto, the guy that is behind Mario, etc., he was heavily involved in that movie. And so it was just this halcyon days last year. It reminds me a lot Nintendo.
Of, if you look at business have that alchemy, HBO is the closest comparison. So Nintendo is a bit more vertical than Sony and Microsoft, and that generally often makes its games as well. So it sort of owns the. Whereas Xbox and Sony don't do that really ever.
It's character IP. I mean,
100%.
We should not they are the next Disney.
Yeah.
And so Sonic is nowhere near as big as Mario. Nowhere near. And you just the value inherent in this IP drives
and
a huge chunk of
Zelda's owned by Nintendo.
Zelda and Splatoon and all these things that I'm not going to say.
Pokemon as well, which is one of the most profitable media franchises.
Pokemon,
in the world.
unbelievable. So that's why I think these results. Last year was an aberration.
Yeah, and
for
the
Nintendo.
market knows that because the market has. Otherwise, there wouldn't be at record highs.
There is a big risk that Nintendo faces.
Before we go to the risk, can we talk about powers? Because this is super interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think the Quiet Guys have actually done an episode on Nintendo, which I haven't listened to. But
I think they did a double episode on Nintendo.
If you look at powers, where is this elk? Obviously, brand's amazing.
Well, their brand is unbelievable.
Yeah, no question,
is crazy.
Yeah, but where do you put that alchemy? That built like the HBO style. HBO, if you look at the cost per Emmy, HBO spends 10 million per Emmy, and Amazon spends $1 billion. Like there's that. They just had that way to do things, but I don't know if it's some sort of process power? Or where does it sit?
I don't think it's process power. So you think about this, right?
Not process power in terms of NVIDIA GPU process power, but process power in some sort of IP that's in the business.
I think that's people. That's not process power. I think they have a very high switching cost. When you buy a console, you're stuck with that console. In this case, like most people are not buying multiple consoles.
But all the consoles have the same switching costs in the sense that like Xbox and PlayStation have the same switching costs.
But whoever sells more has more of a switching cost, and Nintendo massively outsells.
Cheap product, yeah.
I'll tell you what their processing power is if you want to talk. I mean, this is a loose processing power. But so they made a decision. Everyone that was competing on computer processing power for a long time. And at one point they made a decision that said the trick is not to try and compete in the arms race for computer power, but to use very available, cheap computer power and to do smarter, more innovative things with it. Yep. And that was a fundamental shift that they went
through. Like they focused more on story and gameplay and less on graphics.
Well, they're totally focused on gameplay to the point where like the cutscenes in something like Zelda, they're awful, the cutscenes.
Who cares about cutscenes?
Because they don't spend any money on the cutscenes.
That's right. Like it's more bizarre that businesses do spend money on cutscenes. Who cares about cutscenes?
And so I think that was Nintendo's strategic genius to say, actually, gaming does not have to be a processing power arms race in the computer.
I agree, but the
question
is what power does that... It's such an unusual thing that HBO and Nintendo have, and maybe Disney to an extent have it as well. It comes and goes with Disney a bit. But the ability to tell a story and create stories, what is that? Like how do you as an investor, put that in a category?
Well, I don't think that...
It's almost the Hamilton was eighth power.
Well, even what we just described now, which was their strategic decision not to do the arms race and to focus on storytelling, that's not a strategic power because Sony could copy that if they wanted to. That's just about the customer that you're targeting.
I'm not talking about what you do. I'm talking about how does
power.
But how does HBO... Hamilton talks about he's trying to find this eighth mythical power. Yeah. What is this eighth thing? What is this thing that HBO and Sony have that isn't process power, switching costs, counter position? There's none of that. It's some sort of internal storytelling ability, understanding the customer so intently that they can create products that customers love for less cost.
So I tell you what I disagree with on 7 powers and what I think is an eighth power. I think product is a power. Like companies that consistently make a fundamentally differentiated and better product, there is something about that.
Well, product's the output of powers,
Well,
isn't it?
I don't think it is. I think it's a power. Like if you have an ability to consistently make better differentiated product.
So Apple's the classic case of that.
Yeah, and so he might try and chuck that into processing power or something, Hamilton, but I don't think it is.
No, it's not processing.
Like, I think
that's the challenge.
Fundamentally, there's something in that business that produces better products consistently over time than competitors. I think that's the eighth power. That's my view on it.
But what do you call it? Like, you can't just call it product. Product's the output of that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But like whatever it is, it produces consistently better product. And for me and the stuff that I get involved with, that's fundamentally important. That's why I think it's a power. I think most of Nintendo's success is an amazing brand built over time. They don't have better scale than their competitors. They definitely don't have better scale than Microsoft.
I don't think it's just brand, because you look at Nintendo over the years, they have had their struggles. Like they don't always have hits, but they have got the ability to churn out hits. So there's been periods where they've been smashed by PlayStation.
Well, actually, they consistently fall into total disrepair, about to go broke, and then pull the greatest of all rabbits out of the hat. That's their business model.
They come up with a Switch or a GoldenEye. Like it's
they do the Wii U and destroy their business, and then they come out with the Switch. And so I don't think, that's why I say to you that I think product, being able to produce consistently better product. So you're calling it narrative, but it's just product. That's product.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the missing power.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what the risk is.
Yeah.
There was a guy in Nintendo who was a president, and his name was Iwata. And Iwata, his fingerprints were over all of the products in the past.
When did he join? When did he become president?
Early 2010s or maybe late 2000s. But he died in 2015.
Okay.
The Wii
Pre-Switch?
No, the Switch was his last product.
Okay.
And the problem that Nintendo has is every second product they make is junk.
Done. Yeah.
But if you look at the progression in Iwata's brain, the Wii was his.
Yeah.
And that was like the first dramatic thing where they said, it's not about computer processing power. We're going to totally change the way the console feels. And then he did the Wii U. And the Wii U was a terrible flop.
Yep.
But you could see that the Wii U is what connects the Switch, which is a completely portable console that is also, you dock. It's an amazing, you can see that the Wii U was the road to, I always say like, failure is the road to success. It's not a fork in the road.
Yeah.
And so he had to go on that Wii U's failure road to get to the
iPod
Switch.
Movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the thing is this, there's no more Iwata. And now the next console, the next Switch, which I think is just going to be called the something Switch because the brand is too good. Like my son said that to me.
They're going to call it Switch. They're going to call it something
Switch 2 or something or whatever, or something better name, right? Well, actually, it'll be a worse name because they're not good on naming convention, right?
Yeah.
But like, I think the risk is that this product is going to be a piece of crap. And
or Wii U.
Yeah. And because number one, there's no Iwata. And number two, they do have this history of alternating between amazing and terrible. And it's like they need the terrible to shred their business in order to have the, inspiration to produce the next magic. And so I think there's real risks that Nintendo is facing. But the flip side is the company, the brands that has never been stronger than it is today.
Yeah.
And so maybe they can break out of this cycle.
Every second.
Yeah. So if you said to me, would you buy Nintendo at this price? Would you sell it a short? I think I would do neither.
Oh, I'm not a seller. It's expensive, but I'm not a seller for sure.
Exactly.
I don't think, as you say, you don't bet against a religion. And I think Nintendo's a religion.
Yes, it is a religion. Well, like my son is an acolyte of this religion, So yeah, I think it's a super interesting business. One of the world's most interesting businesses.
Definitely.